What is up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today we're going to be talking about the knockout rounds. We're doing a little wrap-up on that, and then we will get into the June Joust finals later on in the week. But today we're going to talk about how we got there, how we got to the June Joust. Our 4 teams are in. We have a couple of surprise teams in here, but before we dive into that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me, everybody that's been supporting me. Thank you very much. All of it is greatly appreciated. Likes, subscribes, all that stuff. I greatly appreciate it, guys. And if you're new, thanks for stopping by. I do Overwatch League content 2 to 3 times a week. So if you like what you're hearing, seeing, all that kind of stuff, please hit a like, hit a subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. Hit the alert bell. That way you know when I got Overwatch League content coming up. So let's get into this. Okay, so we had our knockout rounds on Sunday. My picks were abysmal, of course. I won 1 out of the 4. I picked 1 out of the 4 teams, I should say. The matches themselves were not great, guys. They were just blowouts. And sometimes that happens with hero pools and things like that. It's a comp diff thing, kind of. It's kind of like GOATs. If you're good at the comp, that's good. Sometimes there's no way outside or around trying to do different stuff. I know a lot of these teams tried it, and they tried to make things work. But at a certain point, they don't. There's always one comp, especially in a hero pool scenario, like I said, where it's just better than the rest, and it takes a while to flesh out. And once it does, the teams that master it are the ones that, except for Atlanta, who hid the fact that they mastered one of the comps and, or the comp, I should say, and kind of put that in their back pocket until the tournament, which was sneaky, but also kind of good, because they were working the double shield thing pretty well. What they did in the meantime, while they were working through that, I think they were working on the monkey comps that we're seeing with the Moira Lucio and the Reaper Echo and that whole thing. They were working on that behind the scenes, and once they got it to where they thought it was great, they started playing it. And it worked out well. But we're jumping the gun a little bit talking about Atlanta. Back to the original topic here before we got into a little Atlanta thing there. The matches were not great. They were blowouts, essentially, all of them. I think there was, other than the matches before the knockout round, I think in all of the knockout matches, the losing team only got 2 maps total. So there's that. The only 2 teams that got maps that lost were the Gladiators and the Spark. Everybody else 3-0'd their opponents all the way through the teams that got in just looked infinitely better than the other teams that they were playing, and it wasn't even close. There were matches that were just ridiculously bad, and it's not necessarily the gameplay. I think it's the comfort level of the heroes and all that stuff when you have the hero pool thing in. But, you know, it is what it is, and it's here for a reason. But it didn't provide us with great matches. There was nothing really close. Most of them were decided pretty early. The Gladiators came back a little bit towards the end, and they looked like they were going to do something against Dallas, but that was about it. But we got our 4 teams. We got from the East, we had Shanghai and New York, and from the West, we have Dallas and Atlanta. How did they get there? All right, so we went through all the matches on Saturday. We lined everything up. We had New York, Hangzhou, Shanghai, and Seoul. I thought Hangzhou was going to win this. They were at home. They've looked better. New York snuck in by a miracle fact that the Valiant won a map, and they threw some serious shade later on, thanking the Valiant kind of for winning a map. But anyway, NYXL, they came out and, you know, they're playing different. And I said, you know, they're a team to look at in the future. I'm not expecting them to win this match because I thought, you know, Hangzhou had a better grasp on things, the way things were going. I thought their tank line was better, mostly. And I also did not buy... Friday has been okay up and down, and I thought it was kind of even across the DPS area with Flora and Feather. They looked really good, and I think that New York has taken a new approach to it. It seems like that they're, instead of doing the protect the Jonak thing, they're kind of giving resources to their DPS players and letting them do what they do. And they came out and, you know, they took care of business against the Spark. They made the Spark look stupid in many occasions. In this, the Spark were running some weird stuff early on. They were running kind of a double bubble thing on Oasis. And I don't know, it feels like some teams overthought things as far as their comps instead of playing what got them there and what was good. And, what was working. They were trying some different stuff, trying to throw the other teams off with their comps. But, sometimes that doesn't work. It backfires. The Outlaws did the same thing. I mean, even though that they tried something different and looked kind of weird, Hangzhou on the first map, they won 2-0. And you're like, oh, okay, this is going the way I thought. And then New York just decided to turn the tables on them. And they just kind of destroyed them. Other than on Numbani, which... the Spark had their shots in that to make it to get a win out of it, but they just didn't have there was always something going wrong, like a little thing, nothing like huge where you're missing a lot of ults or your ult cycles off. It was just little things here and there, little opportunities that they were giving New York, and New York was just taking full advantage of it, and they buried them in the end. Shanghai. We talked to Shanghai Seoul. We talked about this match a little bit, and I said it's going to go one of two ways. Seoul's going to smoke them, Shanghai's going to smoke them, or it was going to be a close 3-2, and either team would come out depending on how Seoul was looking. And right off the bat, I knew Shanghai was going to kill them. And Shanghai is proving to be kind of like where I had them. I had the Shock, of course, on top. But I did say at the beginning of the season, I thought Shanghai was my front runner for the overall championship. And, they're playing really well against teams in pressure situations. Yeah, they lost to Dallas in the melee, but twice. But that's just, I think, speaks volumes as to what Dallas can do more than what Shanghai can't right now. What I'm getting at is they're still the best team in the East. They destroyed Seoul. Out of the teams in APAC, they have the best roster, arguably one of the bbest coaches in Moon, except for when Moon's doing Moon things. That aside, where they're trying to feel out a meta and they're running stuff that they shouldn't be running and putting in players that they shouldn't be. I think they've gotten their six down, and DM did retire this week, which is sad. I like watching that dude play and just click heads. Just a side note. It's kind of sad to see him go, but the writing was kind of on the wall. I mean, there were rumors out there that he was leaving or wanting to get traded or something like that, but he retired, and they did a really nice thing. They have a whole tribute on their Twitter page. Check it out, guys. It was pretty cool, especially if you're a DM fan. But at this point, I don't think they need him with Lip and Fleta, and now they got Who Are You in the mix too when they want to run Genji or something like that. But they're just infinitely better than the teams there. Yeah, they're going to lose things, especially, you're going to get with patches and things like that. You might be a little thrown off and they get beat. Unlike the team that I had in, the one spot, who seems to be in a weird situation right now. And we'll talk about them more definitely on the break when we break down, all the teams and where they're at, or at least where we think they're at as far as the current, at the halfway point in the year. We're halfway through, guys, after this tournament. So we got Shanghai and Hangzhou in there. Now, the West, the matches were all terrible. Every single one of them. One team just flattened the other one. Except for Dallas Gladiators. There was one map where the Gladiators looked really good. And once again, Dallas, they didn't come out of the woodwork in this one. Like I said before, I picked Houston. And Houston fans, I had your back. I don't know why, but I did. And as soon as I saw that they were going to try some Reaper McCree stuff, and they were just run with what got you there. Just let Dante play Echo, for Christ's sake. Dallas is a better team. Top to bottom, I just thought maybe Houston had a little kind of revenge. They were looking good. They were playing well, and they've been playing well all season. I just thought this was their time. They were going to take a match away from Dallas. But you know what? Dallas just did the things that have gotten him here. They have Doha, who is absolutely insane on the Reaper. You got Sparkle doing his thing. Fearless is still the best main tank in the league, and you got him on Monkey on top of it most of the time, 90% of the time right now. And their support line is unmatched right now, maybe except for Li Jaegon and Izzyaki. Li Jaegon was incredible against Seoul. He was just nuts. But in this match, there was nothing Houston could do. And you could see it, and you could see it in their faces when they were playing. There was a certain point where Dallas just The certain point was at the start of the match. By the time Houston knew what was going on, it was halfway through Eichenwald. To me, I feel like Dallas just emanate this, and it's not cocky. They emanate this superiority dominance thing at the start of matches. And as easy as it looks to counter or to stop, you can't. They do not give up in fights. There are times when you think they're done, and somebody like Doha does like a sneaky... I have never seen so many sneaky death blossoms except for this weekend, especially with Doha. And maybe one or two other people. He clutched out a lot of fights, and their ult cycling in this current GOATS-ish thing is on point almost every time. They know how to go in. They know when to pop the coalescence. They hold beats for the right time. They're just amazing. And they're also good at countering teams. They knock teams out of things like beat and out of ultimates a lot. And they just did this to Houston continually. Juby, I think, is still having nightmares about this match. And they just bullied him. And they bullied everybody in this match. It didn't matter who. Dante, I think, played reasonably okay. But they were just on top of their game. And I just... Hats off to Dallas. It's another team that I said don't believe in everything that people are saying right now. I think we're getting a full glimpse of how good this team is at this point. When you give them something that fits their play style like this, where you have everybody on heroes that they're good at, there's no need for long range stuff. There's no need for the hit scan thing. At this moment, this current moment right now. It could change with Pine. Pine could just be a decoy. You know what? We put him in every once in a while if we get something like, a Junkertown or something like that. There's always the possibility they want to go hit scan, but they don't have to. And Houston, I think, Houston fans, I'm going to say this. I went through this with the Mayhem last year. You're better than your mind is telling you. You got holes, but you know what? It beats any season you've had yet. So just run with it. It is disappointing when you lose, but and this team is building something right now. You have Piggy and Jongu and Dreamer. That's a great tank scenario. Your supports are really good. Your DPS are fantastic. There's a lot going on here that's good. Is Juby doing the complete job on main support? Yes and no. That could be your one spot where you're like, I don't know. Crimzo, I think, is playing really well, and I like their DPS line. I wouldn't be kind of down for too long on this. Yes, it gets frustrating when your team does it. You're looking at your team, you're like, damn, they're good. But, remember, this isn't like years past either. Some teams got their synergy together faster than others. In other seasons, you could have a stage. I mean, if you go back even to season 2, we're at the point where we would be done with stage 1. So think about it like that. I mean, yeah, there's more urgency, but when you're building a team and you have had terrible results, it's going to take a little bit. And sometimes things take longer with certain players, but the more these guys play together, I think the better they're going to be. I'm positive on Houston. I think they're going to do well. Dallas, I know Dallas is going to be good. It's just... They're just surprising me at how good they're playing right now. Now, Atlanta. Everybody kind of had Atlanta beating Boston. I thought Boston would played them a little bit better, but Boston played decent enough. They made it into the tournament. That is a step for this team. Atlanta just outmatched them in every possible way. They're just... When Atlanta buys in and they play to their fullest potential... And this has been said, they're the Western soul at a certain point where when they get a meta that they're good at and they're confident and they're playing their style and they can impose their will on people, Atlanta is one of the best teams in the league. When they're kind of in flux and there's different metas and they're kind of not sure of what's going on, they're just mediocre. They beat the team. They're the gatekeeper. We're seeing Atlanta at peak performance right now. They beat Boston handily. There was nothing really to really go over too much about this, except for that Numbani map was a fantastic map. I thought Boston was going to at least get a map from them on this, but Atlanta just willed their way to 2 points in the overtime map. Miraculously, they capture the point, and they get to the checkpoint at the end there to win 5-3 in that. Boston couldn't do anything on theirs, but it was just a show of how strong they are. And now, if you watch them, and a lot of teams are doing this, the key thing is to take out the flex support above and beyond, because once the coal goes up, that's when fights can swing either way. So if you keep the Moira down, or even the Lucio, I've noticed a lot of teams are really focusing on the Lucios when they're ult tracking, and Atlanta has good ult tracking in this. They're knocking off the Lucios if they're using Lucio right before they get to beat, and it's amazing. They did it to. I feel like it's happened a few times in this match. They bullied Myeongbong. They knew who to bully in these matches, and it was crazy. But yeah, I think Boston showed some promise, and current setup, they're rotating in and out off tanks. I think they're trying to see who they are. And they also, Atlanta, they made Stand 1's life a nightmare in this. I believe ZP said Stand 1 at this point is just sit 1, because every time he got out of spawn, he was back in spawn. It wasn't even that he was feeding. He was just getting focused so hard by them. And once they took him out, they concentrated on the back line. It was a masterclass on how to run this composition. You keep the ult cycles in your favor. You don't have to worry about the dueling convalescences and the bombs, all the things. You're at an advantage. Yeah, you might lose a fight here and there, but at key moments, you have the advantage in the ult situation, and Atlanta's doing this masterfully. And it continued in their second match against the Shock, which we're going to talk about right now. We'll talk about the Dallas match in a second. But this match I wanted to talk about because this was as bad as the Shock looked against Dallas last time around. That was a compositional choices by the Shock that they weren't ready to handle Dallas doing the no-hit scan thing. It's one thing to look at it on tape, but in reality, they could not handle what Dallas is doing. In this one, they got bullied doing what they do. You do not see that. And I believe it was Kai, after the match when he was talking to Danny, said, we knew it was going to be easy. And hey, that's your confidence, bro. Nobody else thought that, obviously, outside the ring. Maybe a few Atlanta fans. We did have Ken Omagara in the comments on the last video, kind of memed and said if Houston beats Dallas, they go all the way. He had Dallas in that, and then I reckon Atlanta will dumpster the Shock. He LOL'd it, but hey, he nailed it. And look, what Kai was saying is when they bring certain personnel in, we know what they're going to do right off the bat. And it was if they have Smurf in, they do X. If they have Super in, they're doing X. Basically, what he was saying is they're going to run the Monkey comps with Smurf and maybe switch back and forth between Monkey, and if they need to switch out into Orisa comps, they hard commit to Orisa comps with Super. So they knew what they were going to do, and it went for the rest of the team as well, who they were going to play. So they kind of knew what they were going to do, but it still doesn't set aside the fact that in the interim of running these double shield comps that Atlanta's been doing, they have been doing some serious work. Hawk was amazing in this, and so was Gator. He upped his monkey game a lot. And he looked really good. And Iris is continuing to impress me, and Pelican, the whole freaking team played really well. I think they got their rotation in. They got Pelican and Kai, at least right now, and then Spot playing Edison when they need him to. And they're just looking really, really good. And this fits like someone like Masa, who was known for playing goats, right? So this is a goat style thing. He knows when to hit those beats right, knows when to boot people into ults, all that stuff. That was when he was most amazing, Masa, was in the goats era. Not that he's been bad overall since. It's just he was outstanding, one of the top main supports during that time. And you have a meta like that. And you have Gator and Hawk playing at a super high level right now. This team is amazing. And the Shock, they did not look good. from minute one, I was like, ooh, Atlanta looks crisp. They look ready, and the Shock were on their heels the whole match. Every time the Shock didn't give up. And there were points in fights and matches where they were hard committing like they do to other teams where they turn team fights around. But Atlanta was having none of it. It was like Atlanta knew everything that the Shock were going to do before the Shock did it. I don't know if the Shock's play style is fairly telegraphed, but it's so well executed that sometimes they just win out. It doesn't matter if it's like the old football edge, teams that run the football all the time. You know what's coming. You have to stop it. Atlanta knew what was coming, and they destroyed it. They didn't just stop it. They blew them out of the water. The Shock did not impress me at all, as much as they impressed me in the weeks prior, but they have a lot to work on, and most of it is everybody's up their game. We've talked about this a million times. Everybody's up their game. I still thought the Shock was the best team in the league. I've left that out of my mindset right now. The fact that Atlanta, and this is not knocking Atlanta, the fact that Atlanta knew what they were doing and they performed at that high of a level against them, and the Shock had no answer. And I also think the Shock thought they were going to run double shield a lot, but that's beside the point. To me, they know how to run the monkey business that's going on now. Pseudo goats comp. I don't know what to call it. Whatever. This slight variant of Rush, Monkey Rush, whatever you want to call it. They should be able to counter a team that's just been running in practice and has maybe spot showed it once or twice in a fight here or there in a match. Yeah, you don't have tape to go on it, but after the first map or maybe the first engage, you should be expecting them to do this type of thing. So they should have been a lot more Shock-like in their approach to this match, and they weren't. And props to Atlanta. I think they showed that they can be a team that is not just a gatekeeper, that can't beat teams that are above, like the mid-pack when you get up into the top of the league. They look fantastic. They destroyed the Shock, and they move on to the Melee, and they're the number one seed out of the West. So the other match, we had Dallas playing the Gladiators, and I thought this was going to be the best match that we had all day. I was praying for it, but good Lord, Dallas, like I said before, Dallas is so good, and I thought the Gladiators are the best looking team coming into this. They took care of their business. They looked good. They had this comp down. They were running it really, really well, but I guess I underestimated the power of the Fuel and how well that they were running. Yeah, the Fuel lost. The Mayhem took them 3-2. Mayhem's a good team, but there were moments when I was like, maybe Dallas is meh. They're okay. I don't know. But they did what they did the last time too. Oh yeah, and we'll just go in the 5-6 seed. Sure, why not? And we'll just it doesn't matter where we end up, basically. We feel things out, we hard execute. They also had that having that last weekend off is really good for preparing for teams and all that. I think if I was a team, I'd rather play week 1, 2, and have my off week on 3 and then go into the knockout round than doing the either off first week is good too, but that the other rotations in there, I don't know. It just feels like there's a slight advantage to that. And yeah, 2 4-0 teams did get beat, and I don't believe in the curse in that. I believe in skill trumped that this week. But back to Dallas and the Gladiators. The Gladiators, I would like to say, did Gladiator things, but they just got schooled in this match. There was no epic fail, in my opinion, by the Gladiators. It was just Dallas is that good. And it seems like the more Dallas plays, they look like the Shock did in 2018. The more they play together, the more they continue on and they go and they get used to each other. And some of these guys get used to playing with each other again. It's just unbelievably hard to beat them, especially in pressure situations. They have really good pressure players, big game players. They come out and they take care of their business. They have just this insane knack of taking out, like we talked in the last one, they just have a pattern of how they dismantle teams. I don't know if Shanghai's going to pick up on this or not, but we talked about it in the last one, and they were doing it to the Gladiators as well. the same kind of way. They were taking out the supports. Shu had a couple of saves in this that were unbelievable, but they were harassing Shu, destroying Muse, and that was kind of their game plan. And then they pick apart the rest of the team. And Doha was once again nuts. And Fearless looked good. The Gladiators didn't look bad. They just looked like they got hit by a train. From the first map, you could see Dallas was going to have their way with them at times. They got up 1 point on Oasis, and really that was kind of the story on that one. They kept it close on Hanamura, and then they kind of figured out Dallas on Hollywood, but Dallas came back and just took care of business. When Dallas needs to win, they win right now. They're that confident and that good in the pressure is what I'm getting at. This was the best match of the weekend. This is why I saved it for last. They were still kind of blowouts, though. You could call this one close, but at no point after the first map was I afraid of Dallas losing this. Because anytime the situations came up, they were on the perfect ult cycle, and if they weren't, they got it back into their favor. And they have guys that make plays. The Gladiators have guys that make plays too, but they were neutralizing them, like Birdring and Kevster. They were keeping them on their heels. And Shu, all the guys that were integral to this comp, they were keeping them at bay. And it was amazing to watch that when the rubber met the road at certain points, Dallas just put it into a different gear, and they just took care of their business. Yeah, the Gladiators finally got into a tournament. Unfortunately, they got on the side with the Dallas Fuel. It's the problem when Dallas plays kind of meh in the middle, and they end up at 5 or 6 in the tournament, which seems to be a thing with them. I mean, granted, they weren't 2-2 this time, but still they were, and they lost to the Shock, which was why everybody was kind of on that shocker back kind of thing, because Dallas just has been tearing through teams. But I think they learned stuff from the Shock, and that's the thing about this team as well. They're learning. When they lose, it's more of a learning experience, and they just put it in the back of their mind, and they just go on to the next match, and they take care of business. The Gladiators, I don't think, have anything to be ashamed of in this. These two teams I thought were going to be here every tournament. So, to me, Dallas beating them, I thought Dallas was better than them anyway. I had them really close in my original power rankings. There are a couple of things here and there. Dallas is also exploited them making mistakes. Muse had a couple of mistakes here and there, and Dallas just exposed it. Same thing with with their DPS. They couple of misfires on duplicates, things like that. They're a machine right now. Now, will that translate to next week? We shall see. So Dallas beats the Gladiators, and we have our 4 teams. We talked about the matches, and that is going to do it for this episode, guys. So we have our 4 for next week. We have Shanghai and NYXL from the East region, and the Atlanta Regin and the Dallas Fuel from the West. And the schedule we will talk more about, because they have some fun stuff. I guess there's a Widow 1v1 and stuff like that. We'll dive into that a little bit, of course, next week. New York and Atlanta will be playing each other, and we'll have a rematch of Dallas and Shanghai and see how that goes this time. It's going to be an interesting one, because kind of thought maybe Shanghai, maybe a team from the East would sneak in, but these two teams that are in there from the West look unbelievably good right now. And we'll talk more about that later on in the week before the matches start, which are going to be Thursday starting at 9 o'clock at night. So we'll have something up before then. Probably look for it Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. All of your support's been greatly, greatly appreciated. If you're new, thanks for stopping by. Please hit a like, hit a subscribe, and hit that alert bell. That would be greatly appreciated as well. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody stay safe, have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the next one.